All right, so let us look at chapter 1 of our course TC7 audit, and the first chapter is on the concept of assurance. Let us look at the topic list. So we'll first look at the objective and nature of assurance engagement. Then we'll finish up by looking at the types of assurance engagement. So, what are the learning outcomes of this chapter? So, by the end of the chapter, you as students should be able to define the concept of assurance, identify 5 elements of an assurance engagement, know the professional framework which regulates accounting profession, explain the meaning of limited and reasonable assurance reports, give examples of assurance and non-assurance services. That's basically what you're supposed to know by the end of this chapter. So let's start off by talking about what assurance means. The word assurance is derived from the word or the phrase to assure. It's an English word, to assure, right? Which literally means to give someone confidence in something or someone. That's the meaning of to assure, right? For example, right, I could say, I assure you that Ashraf is a good boy. That means one person is giving confidence to someone else about Ashraf, right? So that's basically what to assure means literally, right? But the same concept of assurance in audit and the English word to assure is just the same. In other words, assurance revolves around the literal meaning of to assure. So when it comes to assurance in audit, it's the same as giving confidence about something. So we'll look at what this something is. Right. So the question is, what is an assurance engagement? So we've looked at what assurance is, the literal meaning of assurance. Now let us look at what engagement means. We have looked at assurance to give someone confidence or to make someone believe in something, right? Assurance. But what does the word engagement mean? Engagement doesn't really mean the ceremony that we attend before someone marries. No, that's not the same one, and it's not driven from there. But when we're talking about an engagement, is basically a task, right? A task or an arrangement to do something. Arrangement to do something. That's what? That's what engagement means, right? So when talking about assurance task, right? What do I mean? So an assurance engagement is an engagement in which the practitioner expresses a conclusion designed to enhance the degree of confidence of the intended user other than the responsible parties about the outcome of the evaluation of a subject matter against criteria. This definition is long, but you have to know it as it is. Now, let me break down what this is. When you're talking about a practitioner, is an expert in a particular field, right? It's an expert in a particular field, right? So this expert is giving a conclusion, right? This conclusion is designed to give confidence to people using the what? Using the information, right? This information has been prepared by another party, right? So that's basically it, right? The subject matter is the one that is being evaluated. So let's look at how this goes. Right. So we have these experts called the practitioner, right? Right. He's evaluating a subject matter, right? A subject matter. Subject matter is just basically anything that will be analyzed, right? Or evaluated. So a practitioner is evaluating a subject matter that was prepared by somebody else. This is the responsible party, right? The responsible party has prepared the subject matter, right? This subject matter is intended to be used by some other users, right? This is called the intended users. So what's happening is the practitioner, the expert, is evaluating a subject matter that was prepared by someone else, meant to be used by someone else, right? He's evaluating them so that he can make a conclusion on whether this subject matter is correct, right? Whatever he's gonna say will give confidence to the end user, right? But this person's evaluation should be based on certain criteria, right? Criteria or standards in where he will be making comparison. For example, he will basically have a checkbox and see, does the subject matter have this? Yes, is correct. That, yes, that, seeing if the criteria have been satisfied. So basically, that's how assurance works. So the question is assurance and audit the same? The answer is not. The answer is no. Assurance is a broader discipline, right? Is a broader discipline that encompasses a lot of services, including audit. So, in other words, audit is a subset of assurance. Right. Audit is a subset of assurance. Right. So that said, from the definition that we actually have, we can actually come up with elements from there. And there are 5 elements. For you to remember all the 5 elements, you can use the mnemonic CREST, the acronym CREST, right? CREST will help you to identify all the 5 elements of an assurance engagement. The first one, C, stands for criteria, right? Criteria. They need to be suitable criteria. In other words, standards, right? These are standards or benchmarks, right? These are standards or benchmark, right? For example, if the subject matter in question was the financial statements, that's basically what we'll be analyzing, then the criteria that we'll be talking about will be accounting standards, right? So we're talking about if the subject matter we're talking about is financial statement, then we will be talking about accounting standards, right? Another thing was reports. The question is, where did they write report in the definition? The report is the conclusion, right? The conclusion is in form of a report. After you have concluded, the way you're gonna submit your conclusion is in form of a report, right? So that's basically it. What is this report, right? R in report, in CREST stands for report. This is the conclusion that they express in form of a written report, right? So the conclusion that they express is in form of a written report, right? Another thing is evidence, right? Evidence. It needs to be sufficient and appropriate. In the definition, they do not talk about anything to do with evidence, but for one to come up with a conclusion, he needs to have a basis of making this conclusion. That means he needs to have evidence. This evidence has to be sufficient and appropriate. We will look at these words later on. What does sufficient mean and what appropriate mean? When I talk about sufficient, we're talking about the quantity. Are the evidence enough for you to make a conclusion? Right? Have I collected enough evidence for me to make my conclusion? And appropriateness talks about the quality. Is the quality of my evidence good for me to make that conclusion? Right? That's why the evidence has to be sufficient and appropriate. Right? What this is any information that supports or refutes an assertion. Definition of evidence is this is any information that will support, right? Or the opposite of support is refutes, right? It's basically the opposite of support, like disagree with an assertion or subject matter, right? So what we're saying is, for example, this is just a random example, right? Imagine if we want to look at if Ashraf is a good boy, right? We might talk about how he likes going to church, right? So the evidence could be, I saw him go church every Sunday, right? Or another evidence that would be refuting, right, could be in terms of I haven't seen him swearing, right? I've never seen him swearing, right? So it's just basically refuting an assertion, right? So basically, it can actually support whatever you're looking for, or it can definitely disagree, right? Or I've seen him swearing. It is actually refuting your assertion, right? It's like the opposite. So is that one, even when it is actually disagreeing whatever you're saying, that's also evidence. That's why we're talking about it's actually information that will support or refute an assertion. Let's look at subject matter. So subject matter is basically the item that will be under evaluation. In the example of Ashraf was the subject matter, the one that we are evaluating, right? So the one that we are evaluating, subject matter, right? The item under evaluation. Example would be financial statement, can be a subject matter. We're not talking about now audit in particular, not assurance as a broader discipline, but audit, right? Then the last element is the three-party relationship. There is a three-party relationship. In the definition, we saw three people, right? The practitioner, this is the expert that we're talking about, right? the intended user, and the responsible party. There needs to be this three party relationship, right? Three-party relationship. So we have the practitioner, right? We have the intended user, and we have the responsible party. This is the three people relationship that we're talking about, three-party relationship. So we have seen there's the criteria, the report, the evidence, the subject matter, and the three-party relationship crest. And this as a common question in the exam. What is the elements of an assurance engagement? Let us look at the characteristic that a subject matter should have, right? So, the characteristic that a subject matter should have in order for an assurance service to be provided on, one, it must be identifiable. You should be able to know that in this particular task, this is what I am evaluating. It should not be vague. I cannot say that I'm giving an assurance for a company. No, no, no. You need to be particular. Or what is the subject matter? Maybe I am auditing the financial statement. Maybe I am giving an assurance on the reliability of the system, right? In such a case, you are supposed to talk about what is the subject matter, right? It needs to be identified. If I cannot identify the subject matter in that engagement, then I cannot provide an assurance service. Another thing is must be capable of consistent evaluation and measurement. The subject matter that we have identified, one can be able to evaluate or measure it, right? Evaluate or measure it. If I cannot measure it or evaluate the subject matter, then I cannot provide assurance. And lastly, it must also be capable of being subject to procedures and evidence gathering, right? I can be able to gather what evidence from that subject matter. Because if I cannot gather evidence, then how can I make a conclusion? So that subject matter should be capable of being subject to procedures, some tests that I can make to prove my assertion or gather information. So first, it must be identifiable. The second, it must be capable of being evaluated and measured, and it must be capable of being subject to procedures. These are just tests and evidence. So basically, that's it. The subject matter to have these characteristics, then you can provide an assurance engagement. So let us look at the objectives and characteristics, other objectives the objective and the nature of assurance engagement, right? Assurance engagement, the objective and the nature of an assurance engagement. What is the objective of an assurance engagement? So the main aim or objective on assurance engagement is to provide confidence of the subject matter. That's the main aim of an assurance engagement. So without providing the confidence, then assurance engagement is useless. So that's basically it. So the subject matter can be, we talked about subject matter being financial statements, but they can also be value for money, right? There are some audits called value for money audits, right? You want to give confidence that the money that has been given to them has been used wisely, right? Looking at the 3 E's: economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. Not really important. Corporate governance issues. You can be told to give an assurance in how a company is being run in terms of corporate governance. System liability. These are some of the subject matters, examples of subject matter. These subject matter is endless. You can be told to give assurance on any other topic. That's the subject matter. Then the question is, why do we provide assurance? The concept of assurance revolves on a theory called the agency theory. Agency theory. The agency theory is all about that the company, which is a separate legal entity, is basically owned by a group of people called shareholders. These are the shareholders. These are the owners of the company. But these guys do not participate in the day-to-day running of the company. They employ directors to do that for them while they relax somewhere. The directors are the ones that run the business. These are called the primary agents, right? Primary agents. They are working on behalf of the shareholders, right? So, because of trust issues, right? Because of trust issues, I might not be very confident that these guys' actions are for the best interest, right? They might be chasing personal interests as well, right? So, because of that, I employ another person who is independent to actually evaluate the work of the directors. This is called the auditor, right? Or the practitioner, right? Right? To analyze the financial statements that have been made by the directors, right? Now, this is called the secondary what? Secondary agent. So this guy, he will report to me and say if these guys are complying to the standards. So whatever they've presented is true, right? Then I'll have confidence in the financial statement. That's basically it, right? Assurance came in because the owners of the company and the people that run the company are two different people. So they had to actually find another person who can give such a confidence. Then the concept of assurance came in. So you cannot talk about assurance without talking about the agency theory. What I was explaining is the agency theory, where we're talking about the company is not run by their owners, but other people, right? So basically, that's the agency theory. So that's basically it. So let's look at the international framework for the accountancy profession. The international framework for the accountancy profession. Right. So when we talk about the framework, right? We'll be talking about the IFAC, which is the biggest body of accounting, right? The IFAC will have smaller bodies, right? Like the IASB. Then we also have the IAAP, IASB. Then we also have another body called the IPSASB. Then we have another body, the IAESB. These are bodies, right? These are bodies under IFAC. So let's look at what is the IFAC, right? Let's look at what the IFAC is all about. So for us to appreciate the concept of assurance, it is important for us to know the professional framework under which such services are regulated, right? So let's look at the International Federation of Accountants, the IFAC, because IFAC means the International Federation of Accountants. So the IFAC is a representative body of accountancy worldwide. It's the biggest body of accountancy, right? Is a representative body that body for the accountants profession worldwide. That's the IFAC, the International Federation of Accountants. So the main aim of the IFAC is to develop and enhance the profession to enhance it to provide service of high quality. So its main aim is to make sure that the professional is enhanced so that it provides services of high quality. We are going to develop and enhance our profession as accountants that provide highest quality service to its client. That's the main aim of the IFAC, right? So under it, there are a number of bodies that focus on different aspects. As you saw, we saw that we have the IFAC. Under there, we had a number of bodies that we will look in turn. We looked at the IASB, IAASB. All those bodies are under the IFAC. And every body is actually focusing on a different aspect from the other, right? So ICAM, ACCA, CIMA, ICAWI, ICANN, all these bodies are members to the IFAC. All accountants bodies are members to the IFAC. So basically, that's it. So let's look at the bodies under the IFAC and their roles. The first one is the International Accounting Standard Board, IASB, the International Accounting Standard Board. So this one is there to issue accounting standards, right? To guide preparers and users of financial statements. So the guys that actually issue accounting standards is this board, the International Accounting Standard Board. That's the first board under the IFAC. Then we also have the International Audit and Assurance Standard Board, right? This one is there to issue what? Auditing standards. So we have the ISAs, the IAPS, ISAE, all these are auditing standards. Let me just say auditing and assurance standards, right? Auditing and assurance standards. That's the second board. We also have another board, right? It's called the International Public Sector Accounting Standard. So this one will issue international public sector accounting standards, right? So these are used by the government and government related. So like for example, Ministry of Health use these IPSAS, right? These are called International Public Sector Accounting Standards. And these are issued by the what? The International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board. So that's it. So we also have another one, the International Accounting Education Standard Board. This one issues professional accountants international education standards. So these are the kind of standards that they actually issue. So these standards are used by professional accountants examining boards, right, as a guide for minimum expected accountants competence. So ICAM, as an examining body, will actually have to follow these standards. These are there to actually help them have a minimum expected competency of any member or chartered accountant or diplomat accountant. They are governed by these standards, the international education standards, right? And lastly is the International Ethics Standard Board. International Ethics Standard Board, and this one actually issues ethic codes of ethics for professionals, right? So in short, it's called just called code of ethics. So these are standards. When I talk about ethics, these are standards in how accounting, or accountants should handle themselves, how they should present themselves to the public. These are code of ethics. So this board actually looks at that. So at this juncture, we end here. Thank you.